I'm going to start in about 5 minutes. I'm going to wait for some more people to come in, and I will be turning some music on. So, yeah, I will be starting this in 3 minutes, and I am recording this. So, anyone joining later can replay this. I'm actually enjoying this music. Maybe I'll keep it on for this space and just talk over it. I think it sounds kind of relaxing. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and get started. Um, I first just want to say today has been heavy for a lot of people, not just for Americans who witnessed the horrific assassination of Charlie Kirk, but we have people all across the world who are giving their condolences and sharing their thoughts. And this is a global way that I see people connecting right now. And even in the crypto sphere, people who normally are very neutral and don't talk about politics and don't talk about things outside of crypto or right now acknowledging what happened. And I think part of the reason that is because Charlie Kirk wasn't just an average human being. He was an opinionated family man who was vocal, who was powerful, who was effective. And in America, to many people, he was a patriot. And we can say a lot of things about who he was, people from different perspectives. You know, they say, well, first and foremost, he was a Christian. First and foremost, he was um, a husband, a father, a family man, right? He was all of those things. And one thing that I really respected about him is that he would open the floor to conversation with people of all walks of life, whether he agreed with them or not. He was open to conversation. And I've always respected that about him. You know, it's not easy to get up there and open the floor and let strangers debate you because you don't know what they might know or if you'll have enough knowledge to sound like you have enough information. But he was very effective at what he did. He had a lot of knowledge, and some people liked his delivery and some people didn't. Some people agreed with him and some people didn't. And for me, I mean, there were things I definitely agreed with him on, but there were some things that I really did not agree with him on. But I always liked that he backed up his opinions with facts, with at least some evidence, with at least some conviction. At least he had principles, and he spoke to everybody no matter what they believed, even if it was a different religion or a different political party or a different understanding of ethical dilemmas. I mean, it wasn't as if he went around shutting people down or turning people off or turning people away. If there was anything that he did, it was opening the floor, human to human, connecting with people, agreeing to disagree, laying out his opinions. And I don't think he was killed because of his opinions. I think he was killed because he was effective. He was powerful and he was creating a lot of change. And what bothers me a lot about this is that he was killed doing this the right way. He was doing this at the place you're supposed to learn. He was doing this in college. He was doing this inviting people to be there. The people who were there wanted to be there, at least most of them. He wasn't doing this the wrong way by sitting in the middle of a highway and protesting and stopping cars from going forward. He did this in college, in an open area where people would listen, where people wanted to learn, where people were open to different ideas and different perspectives. He wasn't throwing milk or paint on top of some beautiful painting in France to get people's attention. He wasn't banging on car windows and smashing and looting buildings to get people to listen to him. He wasn't putting graffiti on statues or causing people to protest or riot or freak out. No, he was inviting conversation, inviting people to ask questions, asking people to really think, to critically think for themselves. And because people couldn't break down his logic and give a proper rebuttal, he became really effective. And we can look at other people who've been effective over the years. We can look at Martin Luther King Jr. He was effective at his message, and he was assassinated. I don't agree with a lot of things he said either. We can look at John Lennon. I don't agree with a lot of the things he said, but he had a following. He was effective in his own way. And and when I say they, I don't know who exactly killed each of these people, but I have some ideas. I think sometimes a lot of people choose to remain anonymous on social media because of the fear of violence and backlash from people who want to get you for having wrong opinion. You can't be too effective or you become a target. But nobody wants to be silenced. No one wants to be told you can't say that. We all want to be able to say what's on our mind. But if we do, there's a risk because not everybody's going to agree with us, and not everybody has a healthy way of thinking about disagreement. There's some people who don't know how to sit with disagreement. When Charlie was killed, most people immediately started crying, praying, talking about him in a positive light, hoping he would come out of a critical condition. There were people wishing him the best, wishing his family the best. But there was this dark side of humanity where people were instantly creating meme coins to profit off of what happened to him. And there were people laughing about the fact that he was shot, that he somehow had it coming because he was pro gun. There were people who thought he had it coming because how dare he speak his mind and it be an opinion different than what the news media tells people they should believe. And he had a wide reach of people that he touched. And just about everybody that I know would agree that they didn't agree with everything that he said. But it's okay. No one needs to agree with everything that anybody says. That's what makes us human. Without all of the colors of the rainbow, there's no rainbow. So you have to have all these different opinions. You have to have the best of everybody. And if we can't talk in a civilized society, what kind of society are we creating? In America, we supposedly have the freedom of speech. But I can tell you for myself, even on X, which is purportedly a town square, I've had an account that's been suspended permanently, and it had over 44,000 followers. And I had to start over because apparently in this country, you can't always say what you want because there are people in the shadows and out in the front who don't want certain information to go public. They don't want minds to be opened or minds to be changed or people to be educated or awakened to certain ideas. And just like in the book 1984, where people were accused of double think, double speak. You have to say one thing, but really be saying and thinking something else because you can't sometimes put certain words to light. And the act of speaking these days is an act of courage, an act of bravery. And for Charlie to even be speaking of love at the moment of his death was in itself courageous. When he died, when that bullet hit him, he wasn't saying anything divisive. He was talking about unity and love. And he was killed at that moment. It wasn't necessarily his opinions that got him killed. It was the fact that he was effective. He had a huge reach. I mean, look at the amount of people that showed up to listen to him speak. He was effective at getting his message out to the youth, visiting college after college, sitting at booths and letting people ask him anything. Do you know how hard it is to open yourself to strangers and say, ask me anything? Change my mind about dot, dot, dot. I mean, that's not easy. Most of us would lose our cool or fumble and not know what to say or get livid or get upset. But he somehow found a way to keep his cool. And he listened to a lot of different opinions. And sometimes people walked away with an opinion changed, and sometimes they didn't. Sometimes people left upset. Sometimes people left in agreement. And that's the beauty of having conversations and having dialogue. You don't know how it's going to end. Anything can happen. Having a freedom of expression is beautiful, but it's not free. Freedom isn't free. None of this is. We have to every day be grateful for the fact that we can speak at all, because there's some places you can't, especially for women. I mean, in some countries, women can't speak at all. I mean, there's some places right now that are just so awful. I just wouldn't wish that on anybody. And just 8 hours ago, 8 hours before Charlie, well, 8 hours ago. So Charlie was killed maybe 5 hours ago, something like that. So a few hours before he died, he made a post on Twitter, X, and he was telling people they should politicize the killing of Irina, who was killed on that railway, sitting in her chair. Just a normal white woman, a Ukrainian refugee sitting on a railway, just wanting some transportation to get from one place to another. It looked like she was wearing a Zippity's pizzeria shirt and a matching hat. Maybe she worked at a pizzeria. I don't know. And behind her, there's a black man who decides out of nowhere, without having any interaction or contact or eye contact or any kind of contact with her, pulls out a blade and stabs her in the neck 3 times. Well, 5 onlookers just watch and do nothing. They don't check on her. They don't ask him to stop. They don't say, hey, man, what are you doing? Hey, stop. One of the ladies puts on her bag and she just walks right past her. Doesn't even look at her to say, hey, are you okay? You okay, hon? Do you need a doctor? Do you need anything? Nothing. They just walked right past her. And thankfully, there are photos of uh, other individuals who did check on her. But the 5 who witnessed what happened didn't even look. And those of us that live in America are very aware of the crime that happens. Black on black, black on white, the different forms of crimes. And most of the time we just get upset, but nothing really happens of it. And here comes something where Charlie says we need to politicize this, because if we don't, nothing will change. We have to politicize it, he says, because he got out 14 different times. He was arrested 14 times, spent some time behind bars, but always came out, always got out. So at some point, as a society, we have to say, this is enough. We can't let these kinds of monsters and barbarians live among us. Even that man's own mother said that he shouldn't be out free to walk. His own mother said, hey, he's got schizophrenia, he's got poor mental health, and he's been violent at home. He should be locked away. And America saw this happen. And now you have large groups of people who normally don't get that upset are suddenly furious because we have video footage. We clearly see that there was no motive, no justification. There was nothing in the woman's clothing or her demeanor or how she looked or her attitude or how she was centered. Not that any of that matters. She was just a woman trying to get a ride from one place to another. Just looking at her phone, hoping no one would bother her, trying to be as small as possible. And even after getting stabbed, she wasn't screaming. She was trying to be as quiet as possible until she slumped in her chair, fell on the floor, and just bled out while the people around her just walked past her. And all of the bystanders were Black. And normally that wouldn't even be a topic of discussion, but the fact that this is part of the politicization of it, we have to look at this and say, what's happening in our country where this can happen to a precious white woman for no reason? It's not fair. It's not right. It's not kind. It's not compassionate. It's not what my ancestors fought for when they were in the Underground Railroad helping slaves escape. We know we didn't see this would be where we are today. And I see this happening and I wonder, well, what can we do? We have judges who are activist judges who have their own agendas and biases. You know, do we go after the law? Do we go after the judges? What do you do? And one thing that I liked about Charlie is that he tried to create change through conversation. It wasn't just about the the activism of signing petitions and going after this judge or that judge. With him, he wanted to make change through conversation, asking questions, getting people to really think about why they believe what they believe, and asking people to really think about their principles. What do they really stand on? Even before he passed away today, just shortly after he was shot, there were people already profiting off of his death. There were so many meme coins named after him that I can't even count, and people were trying to make a buck. People were so greedy that they thought, I want to make money off of this. People who wanted wealth and resources so badly that they saw him being shot as an economic opportunity. And for me, that's extremely disturbing. Yeah, on one hand, I deeply respect people who have creative economic thoughts about how to make money, how to see what's trending and make it work. Create those funnels, get the audience, work the traffic. And on this other hand, I wonder what drives somebody to want to profit off of something that comes at the expense of someone's life who is dying in the hospital, who's a father and a husband and has children that may never see him again, and a wife who will miss him for the rest of her life. And instead of spending those few hours to try to comfort the family and reach out to his friends and colleagues and associated organizations or things like that, instead, what they do is decide to create meme coins so they can watch number go up, obsessed with crypto to the point of not even stopping to just breathe and say, a man has just been viciously attacked. I'm going to take a break from crypto for a minute and just breathe and connect with myself and connect with the earth and connect with what has just happened. Instead, they're thinking of the money aspect. Always money, always greed. And of course, on some level, you come to expect that because we live in a world where money is the way to get ahead. And some people, for them, the only way to get ahead is to not let anything hold them back from that, even if someone is hurt. And maybe from their perspective, they're thinking, well, people get hurt every day. There's countries that are hurt every day. Someone has to be on top. Someone has to be on the bottom. But for me, it's just a line I personally wouldn't cross. When this happened to him, I was sitting on my bed holding a green jade ball. It's like my crystal ball, so to speak. I use it sometimes to meditate or to massage my legs or something. And I was holding my jade ball and I was thinking about Charlie and I was thinking of his family, thinking of him in the hospital, getting his blood transfusions, thinking of his daughter, thinking of his impact and what this would do to people who would be hurt by it. What kind of emotions this would bring out of people who were infuriated by what happened. The despair this would cause to people who were saddened by what happened. And it hurt to think about it. It hurt. It physically hurt my body to think about it. And then when I heard that he passed away and he had taken his last breath and those blood transfusions weren't enough because he had been shot in his carotid artery, which people who saw the video was very graphic and there was a lot of loss of blood. People prayed for a miracle. It would take a miracle because most people would never recover from that. And when that happened and I heard that he died, my heart sank because I kind of felt like that was going to happen. But then I took a minute and I closed my eyes and I tried to connect with Charlie. I said, Charlie, if you can hear me in your other realm, if you've crossed over, can you hear me? Can you say some words? And I swear to you, it was almost as if I heard him talking to many, many, many people who were all trying to talk to him at the same time. And I got such a beautiful vibe in that moment. But I also got a sense of sadness when I thought about his family and that loss. A lot of this makes me think of what freedom of expression is and the risk involved in speaking in public, putting your face out there, and in his case, putting his body out there. It's one thing to hide behind an avatar on social media and have some anonymity to say what you want. It's another to be walking out in front of people and being in range of a sniper. And yet, for years, he didn't let that stop him from talking and opening the floor to people and saying, hey, let's have a conversation. Let's talk. Let's be real with one another. Tell me what's on your mind. Why do you feel that way? How do you know? Can you tell me more about that? Where'd you get those facts? Let me tell you my facts. Let me tell you what I know. He wasn't holding them down and tying them down and waterboarding them and forcing them to believe something. He was having a conversation, saying, hey, put your facts on the table. Show me your cards, I'll show you mine. Show me what you believe, I'll show you what I believe. And that was his way of creating change. He had said that his number one goal in life was to de-radicalize people. If you think about that, I mean, what's so bad about that? De-radicalizing people, that basically just means normalizing people, uh, making making a world where people feel safe to not necessarily feel that they have to go to an extreme in order to appease the narratives of mainstream media. And if you look at the mainstream media right now, some of the things they're saying about Charlie, it's really sick. When he first got shot, MSNBC had someone on there who made the claim that maybe one of his own supporters was shooting in celebration and it accidentally shot him. And that's sick because this was one shot. It was a very specifically aimed shot. It wasn't a multiple set of shots where some of them went crazy and it looked like a firework went off in the air. It was not like that. It was very precise. It was aimed directly at him. And then after it happened, the media started to spin it. You even had some media claiming that he deserved this because of his opinions on this or his opinions on that. And yet, that's all they were opinions. It's talking. In America, we have a constitution that says we have the right to free speech. And it was created by founders who, at the time, most of the signers were Christian. They had Christian beliefs. And now we live in a country where there's not a lot of Christians. There are a lot, but I wouldn't call it a Christian nation. It's a melting pot of many different religions and people who have no religions and people who've made religions. And it's just a melting pot of ideas and beliefs. And when you have those kind of belief systems that are incompatible with the original signers of the Constitution, you end up having the problems we see today. And that's what Charlie said. Those were his talking points. And that's what he believed was causing a lot of the turmoil today. I don't think that's necessarily an incorrect statement. um, I don't even know what my beliefs are. They change every day. I'm very open minded. So I have a lot of a lot of open mindedness about my beliefs as well. And right now, what I'm seeing is that a lot of the people who are hurt the most by his death are Christians. And I don't like to see Christians in this kind of pain, watching someone they love and admire and treat as a role model assassinated in such a fashion that people are traumatized all over the world, not just in this country, but everywhere people are talking about it. And people are talking about it who don't even see Charlie Kirk on their feed. My son is a teenager, and he and I don't even get the same algorithm of content when we look on social media. And he asked me if I knew that Charlie Kirk was killed today, and I said, yeah. I couldn't believe it. Wild. I think that the only way we're going to make change in this country is if we change what we allow people to do and what they're allowed to get away with. We've got to change the justice system. And I don't have all the answers to it. That's not exactly what I would say is my specialty. I mean, I'm much better at finding mistakes in grammar and syntax and that sort of thing, because that's what I do as an editor. I'm not a politician. I don't have a lot of experience with politics, but I do know what it's like to use my voice and stand up at town hall or city hall and get laws changed. I've done that. I know what it's like to talk to people one on one and say what I'm feeling and what I'm thinking. It's not inciting anything, it's just having respectful dialogue. And one thing that ties some of what happened with Charlie to what's going on today in crypto, there's some parallels. One thing I've noticed is that there's a sense of polarization when it comes to how people engage with one another. It seems to always be this, I got you. Let me one up you. Let me be right, rather than let's have a conversation. And I'm a big fan of debate, right? I like arguments. I even took argument in college. I love a good, healthy, hearty argument. I love arguing. I love arguing. Sometimes I want to have a fight. But if you really want to connect with people, you have to be open to listening to things that you disagree with, that you're uncomfortable with. And most of us know that. It's common sense. Most of us already know that. We know when someone has an opinion that's different, most of us will listen. And sometimes we'll put our opinion back, hoping that they'll listen, that maybe they'll learn from what we're saying, right? And they're thinking the same thing. And I have friends who think very, very differently than me. I have friends who have religious beliefs that I very much disagree with. But we can sit down for dinner. We can break bread together. I can help build their website. We can collaborate on projects together and have our differing opinions. And that's the way it is. And I have friends from all over, from all walks of life. And sometimes their opinions are so different than mine that sometimes I question how in the world we're friends. And then I remember what caused us to be friends to begin with. And it's because we shared a traumatic bond. There was something I went through that was similar to something they went through. And we looked at each other as human beings and said, I know what that feels like. And then you're just there for each other. And I think that's what's really cool about what happened with Charlie. Not that he got shot, but that he was able to speak to people and see people who for who they were. Even Tim Pool was saying this. He was saying that Charlie was there for him, and even though they didn't always see eye to eye, he was the best of just being a man of his word and being a man of integrity. And that says a lot, when you can have a friend who you can openly disagree with, but you can rely on them. You can trust them. And that it's interesting because when you think of a polarizing conversation, you think of people who have very opposite opinions and can't agree and they fight and they bicker. But not all opposing opinions needs to be viewed as polarizing. You can have opposing opinions and be unifying. You can have opposing opinions with people and be the best of friends. I mean, I've got friends I have very opposing opinions with, and we can look at each other and both think that each other is so wrong, but we also know that we would do anything for each other. And I think some of that gets lost, especially when we see certain groups of people or individuals who seem to be pretty radicalized. We go, why are you laughing after hearing Charlie got shot? Why are you laughing? I mean, that's a sickness. That's a mental illness. And I don't think it's right. But at the same time, I am a believer in freedom of expression. And I believe that even to the point of letting people express themselves in a way that I find disgusting. Because that's what makes us free. And I find it despicable. It disgusts me to see people laughing and saying horrible things about Charlie, especially right now. It just upsets me so deeply. And I see people already wanting them to face the consequences for that. People are doxing one another, finding out where people work, gonna get them for laughing. And maybe they deserve it, right? But it just makes me wonder what freedom of expression really means if most people on all sides of the aisle are always afraid of expressing their freedom, expressing how they really feel about something because they're afraid someone's going to come after their jobs or their family or shoot them or dox them or humiliate them or expose something they didn't want exposed or bring something to light that's been dead for a long time or just ruin their lives. I've had shit happen to me. I fucking know. I've had death threats. I've had all that. Before I had this account, I had another account. It had 44,000 followers at one point. And I had haters. I had some comments that were so horrible, I had to go to the police and say, I'm afraid for my life. And one time I got a message where someone threatened to hurt my family, and they were very graphic about what they were going to do. And the irony of all of this is that I have an entirely new account using an AI generated photo of a woman who's not me. It's completely anonymous. And it's to protect me, it's to protect my family because I don't feel safe enough to express myself. I don't. I don't feel like I can really say everything I want to say because I know what people are capable of when they get mad and they have mental health problems or they have a belief system where they feel justified in threatening violence against people. And by me putting a picture out of somebody else, even though she's not a real person, I'm not impersonating anybody. And I tell people all the time, she's not me. People still find it interesting to tell me, you're using a fake picture. You're not real. You're fake. And that's it's interesting. So if I put my real photo out there, you'll call me ugly to attack me, or you'll know what I look like so you can identify me and hurt me in real life. Or I can use another picture and then you call me fake. So I'd rather be called fake and protect my family than put myself out there and have that risk of what happened with Charlie today. He was a courageous person and he was a person who wanted to have dialogue. And I think a lot of us will always respect him for that. But I can also see online as I'm just looking at what people have to say, and I see a lot of anger. I see people yelling. I see videos of people laughing. I see videos of people screaming into their camera phones, upset at the murderer or saying he deserved it. I mean, just all these different opinions. And people are free to express how they feel. But I would hope that people can remember what makes us human and what makes us connect with one another. Because all we have is each other. If you think about this from the perspective of the earth being very, very small, Carl Sagan referred to it as a pale blue dot. Remember that? If you think about the earth as being a dot, and then you picture where you are, where I am, where all of us are just living our lives on that pale blue dot. And you see yourself from such a far away distance that you see that you are very human. And for a moment, you can look at the earth and everyone on it, and for a moment, forget that anyone has a bullseye on them. That for a moment, you can just see the earth as everyone being safe and everyone living their lives in peace. That's how it looks from far away. And up close, those of us that are living here on earth, and we're exposed to what happens here every day. And we see what goes on the news, which of course feeds its own narratives. And we can't trust the news. And most of us know that anyway. But there's some people that don't know yet. There's some people that don't know that the news has an agenda, that it's mockingbird media, repeating the same talking points, and they have an agenda. They have a narrative that they need to push out. That's what they do. They want the ratings. They want the votes, et cetera, et cetera. But we see the natural disasters, the lives lost. We see the crime. We see people taking advantage of each other, the human trafficking of men, women, and children, everybody. We see the wars, we see the hunger, we see the homelessness and the housing crises, and people trying to have sovereignty and have a way forward. And from far away, it just looks like we're just a little dot. And up close, all of us are trying our very best to live our best lives. And when you think about your best life, does it include yelling into your phone because someone has a different opinion? I mean, to me, that just doesn't sit with this idea of being a calm, rational individual. It just seems counterintuitive to just living a life in peace. I know a lot of us today have looked on our phones and seen our social media, and all of us are seeing the same thing. We're all seeing the same algorithms right now. We're seeing the same stories. We're seeing the same comments, the same videos. And it's being pushed out on purpose for us all to see it. And we're all seeing the same thing. And because we're human, our heartstrings are being pulled. We're feeling those emotions of what we're seeing, and it's a lot. But I just want to give everyone a little bit of encouragement and just a little bit of support. Just remind everybody that not all of us have given up on this idea of freedom, freedom of expression, freedom to speak, freedom to talk, even if it's behind an avatar, freedom to say what we want to say, even if we have to package it in a way that is more palatable to people. At least it's not being completely silent in fear. We have a voice and we can choose to be silenced. We can choose to do anything. We can completely choose not to say anything but still feel a certain way, or reserve our commentary for individuals we feel safe enough to share that information with. We don't have to share everything with the world in order to feel that we have freedom. That's the other beauty of freedom, is choosing who your audience is. So I just want to encourage everyone, use your voice. Think about what matters to you and what matters to your families. Think about what you're willing to talk about, what you're willing to speak up about, what you're willing to let go of, what you're willing to be enraged over. Like, what are your parameters? And I think the important part about thinking about that is that it gets us thinking about our own principles and how we handle our own moral dilemmas. Because a lot of this is ethics, right? How do we ethically navigate a situation where we want to speak, but we may not want to be held responsible for what we say because we don't want to be doxxed and attacked by people who can't handle what we've said? I mean, that's the thing. And Charlie was effective at what he said. And anybody who's that effective is going to be a target. Because if you have the real ability to make real, effective, huge, rippling change, then everybody sees you. And then you become a force to be reckoned with. And some people are ready to be that force, and some people are not. They have people to protect, they have families to protect, they have a self to protect. But to those who feel like a force to be reckoned with, they see everything around them as something worth protecting. And that's who Charlie was. He could have stayed home and just protected his wife and his kids and just laid low. But he said, you know what? I care about this country. I care about de radicalizing people. I care about people I don't know. So I'm going to go out and I'm going to say something and I'm going to talk. And by doing so, he took the biggest risk. And today we saw what happened by taking that risk. I want to thank everyone who has stepped in here to listen and those who will be listening to this later on a recording. I just want to thank you for just walking with me, just listening to my thoughts. Today has been pretty deep for a lot of people, and it's been difficult for me to find something lighthearted in all of this because it's affected people on a pretty deep, very deep level. So I want to wish everybody love, some support and happiness and safety. And I hope all of you will feel free. The freedom can ring in your voice and ring in your hearts, but especially in your mind, because no one can take that from you. Have a good night.